My name's Kate Rigby. I'm Professor of Environmental Humanities at Monash University. I have a background in German studies and comparative literature, but I've moved into this more kind of interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary field of environmental studies within the humanities. So my work crosses the fields of environmental literary studies, history, philosophy, and religious studies. I've been working on a project on the cultural history and literary representation of what has become known as natural disaster, beginning with the Great Lisbon earthquake of 1755, which was a trigger for the emergence of kind of modern ways of thinking about geophysical extreme events. As natural phenomena. And I'm looking at the way in which works of the creative imagination, particularly literary works, can help to disclose the interaction of sort of multiple human and non-human factors in the genesis and unfolding of these calamities. And can also explore ethical questions and questions of affect relating to the experience of catastrophe. So one of my chapters is on bushfire, the Australian bushfire phenomenon. I'm focusing there on a work of children's literature by the very well-known Australian children's writer Colin Teeler. And it's a novel for sort of late primary, early secondary age children called February Dragon. And what really fascinated me about this work, well, first of all, it was written at the request of the South Australian Bushfire Research Centre, and in the hope that he would be able to write a work of fiction that would help to educate children about the dangers of bushfire, the impact of bushfire, and help in developing a culture that was better able to mitigate and prepare for bushfire. His primary strategy for really impressing upon his child readers that you don't want bushfires of a catastrophic kind is through the emotional impact of the loss of non-human loved ones, the animals with whom the children are connected. So the love of animals and the love of the bush and of their life on the farm is what Teeler really emphasises, and the significance of their affective, their emotional ties to non-human others. I'm also very interested in the interrelationship between aesthetics, affect, and ethics. And what I mean by aesthetics is not what is generally understood to be meant by that. I'm not talking about works of art. I'm talking about sensory experience. When the term aesthetics was actually first coined in the 18th century, that's what it meant. It was actually a theory of sensory experience. And I've been working with the philosophy of a German thinker called Gernot Böhmer, who incidentally was recently in Melbourne, who's developed an ecological aesthetics, which is really about finding ways of thinking about and talking about the affective force of the environment. So how we actually feel in different kinds of environments, and through becoming aware of that, thinking of ourselves more as embodied and environmental selves. I'm very persuaded by the research that suggests that human reasoning incorporates emotion, and that the idea that to act in a reasonable way is a matter of exclusively rational or logical judgment is illusory, and that there is a kind of a wisdom of a kind of an emotional intelligence, if you like. I think that's a term that's used. Reflecting upon the history of emotions, researching the history of emotions, is important for a number of reasons. The things that come to mind to me are, first of all, the recognition that our emotions do have a historical index, that our emotions, may be related to kind of primal feelings, instincts, impulses on one level, but they're always sort of mediated and informed by culture as well as by personal experience and historical frameworks. So I think that makes that engenders a kind of greater self-awareness. The history of emotions can also, I think, help to encourage a more kind of complex sense of human selfhood and of human rationality as not narrowly rational, in fact, but having this affective dimension to it.